If you're planning to take your CPP at 65, you may be leaving 42% of your lifetime income on the table. Not 5%, not 10%, 42%. That's the difference between collecting $1,433 a month and collecting $2,035 a month for the rest of your life. I used to think 65 was the safe middle ground too. It feels natural. It's the default. And most people around you are doing the same thing. But when I actually ran the numbers for my own retirement plan, I realized that normal was costing me real money. Money I had already earned. There's a second part to this that most people never hear about. Taking CPP at 65 can push your total income over the OAS clawback threshold, roughly $91,000 a year. Once you cross that line, the government takes back 15 cents of your OAS for every dollar above it. So you're not just leaving CPP money behind. You could also be losing part of the OAS benefit you've been counting on. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the math behind both of these, the 42% CPP boost and the clawback trap, and walk you through how to figure out the right start age for your specific situation. If you're a Canadian between 55 and 65 and you don't want to leave money on the table, hit subscribe right now. This channel exists to help you get every dollar you've earned. Let's start with the simplest version of the math. Say your CPP at 65 works out to $1,200 a month. If you delay to 70, that same benefit becomes $1,704 a month. A 42% permanent increase. That extra $504 every month is inflation indexed, meaning it grows with the cost of living for the rest of your life. For someone who lives 20 more years past age 65, which Statistics Canada data tells us is roughly average for a Canadian at that age, we're talking about more than $120,000 in additional lifetime income. So how does the math actually work? CPP adjusts at two different rates depending on which direction you go. If you take CPP before 65, it's reduced by 0.6% for every month you start early. That's 7.2% per year. Take it at 60, and you're looking at a 36% permanent reduction. If you delay past 65, it increases by 0.7% per month, 8.4% per year. Wait until 70, and you get the full 42% boost. Now let's look at what you're giving up during the delay. If you delay from 65 to 70, you skip 60 months of CPP payments. At $1,200 a month, that's $72,000 you don't collect up front. But once you start at 70, the higher payment closes that gap. The breakeven point, where the total lifetime income from the higher payment surpasses what you would have collected starting at 65, lands at roughly age 82. If you're in reasonably good health today, the odds are good you'll live past 82. This is where the math starts to shift clearly in favor of waiting. But here's the part most people don't see coming. Taking CPP at 65 doesn't just affect your CPP, it affects your total retirement income picture. If you also have a workplace pension, RRIF withdrawals, or other income sources, adding CPP at 65 can push your net income over the OAS clawback threshold, currently around $91,000 a year, indexed annually. Once you go above it, the government claws back 15 cents of OAS for every dollar of income over the line. That's a 15% recovery tax, quietly running in the background while you thought you were getting both benefits in full. And here's something that surprises a lot of people. CPP and OAS are completely independent decisions. You don't have to start them at the same age. You can take OAS at 65 and delay CPP to 70, or delay both. The flexibility is real, and most people never use it because no one explains it clearly. If you've been a diligent saver with a pension and RRIF income, you're exactly the person this clawback targets. The system is structured in a way that penalizes higher earners in retirement And taking CPP at 65 can be the thing that pushes you over the edge. The 42% boost sounds like a straightforward win. But if that extra CPP income pushes you above the clawback threshold, you need to look at the full picture before deciding. Let's do that now. Most generic retirement advice says the same thing: delay CPP to 70 and you'll be better off. That part is usually right. But the real decision isn't just about CPP in isolation. It's about managing your total income so you stay under the OAS clawback threshold, or at least don't cross it more than you have to. Let me show you two paths side by side. Path 1, you take both CPP and OAS at 65. Say your CPP is $15,000 a year, your OAS is $8,000. You're drawing $30,000 from your RRIF, and you have a workplace pension of $20,000. That adds up to $73,000, below the clawback line. You're fine. But if your RRIF draws are larger, or you have rental income on top of that, you can push past $91,000 fairly quickly. Every dollar over that threshold costs you 15 cents in OAS. It adds up faster than most people expect. Path 2, you take OAS at 65, delay CPP to 70, and use your RRSP savings to cover the gap for those 5 years. During that window, your CPP income isn't in the mix, so your total income stays lower. You reduce the clawback risk. Then at 70, your CPP kicks in at the full 42% boosted rate, and your OAS is already fully established. Here's the math behind why this staggered approach makes sense. Delaying CPP past 65 adds 0.7% per month. That's 8.4% per year. Delaying OAS past 65 adds 0.6% per month, 7.2% per year. CPP has the bigger boost. So if you can only delay one of them, delay CPP first. I used to think you had to take both at the same age. It wasn't until I sat down and worked through the numbers for my own situation that I realized you can split them. And that flexibility is one of the most underused levers in Canadian retirement planning. Most people don't know it's even an option. The staggered strategy works best when you have savings to draw from during the bridge years. Your RRSP, TFSA, or non-registered investments can all serve this purpose. The goal is to keep your income below the clawback threshold while you wait for the larger CPP payment to kick in. That strategy works beautifully if the savings are there. But what if you don't have enough to bridge the gap? Or what if the idea of drawing down your nest egg before CPP starts keeps you up at night? That fear is real, and it's worth talking about directly. Let's be honest about both sides of this decision. If you take CPP at 65, you lock in a lower base for life. If your total income puts you above the clawback threshold, you start losing part of your OAS on top of that. And if you live past 82, the math works increasingly against you with every year that passes. If you delay CPP to 70, you give up 5 years of payments, but you replace that income with your own savings, and then switch to a permanently higher inflation-indexed payment once you hit 70. Your OAS stays fully intact if your income during the bridge years stays below the clawback line. And as you get into your 80s, you have more room to reduce your RRIF draws because your CPP is covering more of your baseline needs. Here's what the numbers look like over a lifetime. Person A takes CPP at 65 and collects $1,200 a month. Over 20 years to age 85, that adds up to $288,000. Person B delays to 70, collects $1,704 a month, and even with 5 years of missed payments, still reaches $306,720 by age 85. Past 85, Person B pulls further and further ahead. Every additional year of collecting that higher payment widens the gap. Those aren't small differences. We're talking about real money that either stays in your pocket or doesn't, depending on one decision you make before you retire. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying everyone should delay to 70. If your health is poor or you genuinely have no savings to bridge the gap, taking CPP at 65 or even earlier can absolutely be the right call. This isn't a one-size answer. But if you're in reasonable health and you have some savings to work with, the math consistently points in one direction. The question most people don't ask is, what happens to my bridge savings if the market drops right when I need them most? Because that's the scenario that can unravel even a well-thought-out plan. Let's look at that next. Let's say you're 65, you've decided to delay CPP to 70, and your plan is to pull about $1,200 a month from your RRSP to replace the CPP income during that 5-year window. That's a reasonable plan. But what happens if the market drops 20% in your first year of retirement? A $200,000 RRSP becomes $160,000 almost overnight. Now you still need to withdraw $14,400 a year to cover your living costs, but you're selling units at a loss every time you do it. The portfolio doesn't just shrink because of the drop. It shrinks further because you're pulling money out while it's down, and the psychological pressure builds. At some point, a lot of people reach a breaking point and say, I can't keep watching this. I'm just going to start CPP. That decision, made in a moment of stress, can cost you the entire 42% boost. It's a permanent consequence of a temporary problem. The people who handle this well aren't necessarily smarter. They just set themselves up differently ahead of time. Some keep a year or two of CPP replacement income in a high-interest savings account or a GIC ladder, so the equities portion of the RRSP can stay untouched while the market recovers. Others use their TFSA for part of the bridge, tax-free withdrawals that don't affect the clawback calculation. If you had $72,000 set aside in short-term GICs before the market dropped, you never have to touch the RRSP in those early years. You let it recover, and your CPP decision stays intact. The key point here is straightforward. Don't let a short-term market shock push you into a permanent CPP decision. With some planning ahead of time, you can keep both options open. So what does that planning actually look like? Let's get practical. Let me give you 3 concrete things you can do this week to get clarity on your own CPP decision. First, log into your Service Canada account and pull your CPP statement. It will show your projected monthly benefit at 65, and most people are surprised by what they see, either higher or lower than expected. That number is your starting point for everything else. Second, add up your estimated retirement income from all sources, OAS, any workplace pension, your planned RRIF withdrawals, rental income, and anything else that will flow in regularly. Compare that total to the OAS clawback threshold, which sits around $91,000 a year and is adjusted annually. If you're already at $75,000 or $80,000 from other sources, adding CPP at 65 could push you into clawback territory. That changes the calculation significantly. But here's the friction most people don't see coming. They think, I'll just take CPP at 65 because I don't want to touch my savings. And I understand that feeling completely. You've spent 30 or 40 years building that RRSP. Drawing it down before CPP starts feels backwards, but that discomfort has a cost, and it's often larger than the discomfort of the drawdown itself. Third, ask yourself honestly, do I have enough in my RRSP, TFSA, or non-registered accounts to replace CPP income for 5 years? If yes, delaying to 70 is likely the stronger move. If no, you might be better served by taking CPP at 65 or somewhere in between. I worked with someone, let's call him Dave, who had a $180,000 RRSP at 65 and was planning to delay CPP to 70. He was worried about the market, so we set up a GIC ladder for the first 3 years and had him draw from the RRSP for the remaining 2. He never had to sell a single stock in a down market. And now he collects $2,035 a month in CPP for life. The plan wasn't complicated. It just required sitting down and actually mapping it out. There's a reason most people default to taking CPP at 65, and it's not because they've run the math and decided it's the right call. It's because drawing down their savings before CPP starts feels like losing something they worked hard to protect. Loss aversion is real. The pain of watching your RRSP balance drop, even temporarily, even as part of a deliberate plan, registers more strongly than the long-term gain of a higher CPP payment, so people avoid it. They take CPP at 65 to protect the nest egg, not realizing that protecting the nest egg is exactly what's costing them the most money over time. I get it. You've spent 30 or 40 years building that cushion. Your brain is wired to hold on to what's there. That's not a character flaw. It's just how we're built. But here's a way to think about it differently. Delaying CPP is essentially buying a guaranteed, inflation-indexed income stream for life at an 8.4% return per year. If someone offered you a risk-free investment at 8.4% annually, you'd take it without hesitation. This is that investment. It just requires using your own savings as the funding mechanism for a few years. So the math is clear, the emotions are real, and the answer depends on your specific situation, your health, your savings, your other income sources. Let me bring this together for you. Taking CPP at 65 isn't automatically the wrong decision, but for most Canadians it is the default, and defaults are rarely designed with your specific situation in mind. The two things worth keeping in mind are these. You're giving up a 42% permanent boost by not waiting to 70, and if your total retirement income crosses roughly $91,000 a year, you'll lose part of your OAS to the clawback on top of that. Staggering your start dates and using a short bridge from your savings can help you avoid both problems and keep more of what you've earned. If you found this useful and you want straightforward, Canada-specific retirement information, subscribe to Brian's Canadian Retirement Playbook and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. Run your own numbers. Be honest about your health and your savings, and make the choice that gives you the most options down the road. I'll see you in the next one.